Southampton 1, Liverpool 2, and we are through to the League Cup semi-finals. So, job done. And what a game of two halves that was. Bloody hell. So, Slot started with what we all expected and, to be honest, hoped for, which was a team made up with a couple of experienced players, a few kids, a few squad players, and a few coming back from injuries. Up against Southampton, who are rock bottom right now. It was the right lineup, and to be honest, I was thinking we were going to have a first half where it was going to be very disjointed from Liverpool based on this being a completely new team up against the Southampton team that was pretty much its first team, and it wasn't like that at all. Credit to the lad, they were absolutely dominant from the very first whistle. It was an absolutely superb first half performance. Throughout the first half, we had 75% possession. We were passing them to death, and all of the youngsters and all of the players who just come in looked completely at home. I was talking to my mate Dan Bennett at half time, and we were agreeing that, you know, we can put these youngsters in, but they're so well conditioned to the way Liverpool play that it's not like they miss a beat because they know exactly what their role is. And that's what it looked like in the first half. I'll get to the second half in a bit. After about 20 minutes of it being sort of Liverpool just dominating, Southampton couldn't get anywhere near the ball. They were trying that trick that all the lesser teams do of trying to hit on the break, put as many men back as you can and like launch long balls and try and get something. It almost paid off once or twice, but no real threat. And then a ball from Trent deflects off the defender right into the path of Darwin Nunez, but he's still got quite a bit to do, and he has to control it, he has to figure out where the keeper is, and he's side-footed home. And it was a tremendous finish, and for someone who's been lacking in confidence, it was a great finish. Southampton visibly lost the plot right after that. They weren't much in the game before that, but it looked like they threw the towel in. Liverpool completely dominated from that point on in the first half. We already had dominance, but it was sort of passive dominance. But from then on, Harvey Elliott gets on the end of a lovely Gakpo pass and slots it home for number 2. And it looked like it could be 3-4. McAllister had a fantastic shot as well, almost made it 3-0. Great save. Southampton were happy to get into the break just 2-0 down. There was a couple of things about that first half that I was really pleased with. Darwin has always been criticised for his lack of composure, and he showed composure. And Harvey Elliott is criticised to some extent for somewhat snatching at the ball with his shots, and he fired in a cracking shot today, took a lovely first touch and buried it. So, real positives. One thing about Harvey, he was put into that right wing position, Mo's position, and he's never done particularly well there. And the first 20 minutes of the match, he wasn't in it. Then he started to drift inside. I don't know whether it was by design, but as soon as he started to drift inside, he was so much more involved in the game, and that's where his goal came from as well. So anyway, it's 2-0 at half time. Second half, the changes are made because we're cruising this game. And then Chiesa and Costas came on for Trent and Joe Gomez. And for the first 7 or 8 minutes of the second half, it was exactly the same. Liverpool just passing them to death. Southampton couldn't get into the game at all. And then it all changed around the 50th, 52nd, 53rd minute. We'd had a fantastically high pass percentage rate, like 90%. And then we started to give the ball away. And we started to not make the tackles. And we started to get sloppy, and complacency took over. Now, there's a couple of reasons for complacency. One, you just take your eye off the ball because second gear was enough, so why not go to third or fourth gear? But we've also got to take into account that this is a bunch of youngsters and players coming back from injury, and a load of changes, and even more changes at half time. But even so, going back to my earlier point, you would expect a Liverpool team to maintain its discipline and its composure and its shape, and we didn't. And second half, it was a battle. Southampton absolutely won the second half. They had the best chances. They scored the goal. The goal was a bit lucky because it was fired in and it smacked Endo in the face. He went down. The ball breaks, but then Tyler Morton and Jarell Quansah both get attracted to the player and the ball. One of them should have stood off. They allowed him to pick his spot and he curled it in past Kelleher. Youngsters learning the trade. Anyway, it made it 2-1 and then we lost that control. We lost our composure and we were littered with errors. And the crowd were up for it. Southampton were up for it. They smelt blood and they thought, we can get back into this. And at no time in the second half did we ever regain that control. Around about 75 minutes, Southampton had finally ran out of steam and we did get about 3 or 4 minutes of knocking it around. It looked like, okay, we're back in control here, let's keep it. And then, I'm sorry to call it out, but I have to, because it almost changed the game in their favour again. But Darwin Núñez volleys a back pass 50 yards out of play. And the crowd get up for it. They launch everyone forwards. And once again, they're on the front foot and they're going at us again. And there was no need for it at all. So, towards the end of the game, the ball is put over the top. Jarell Quansah is battling with the forward. The forward gets the better of him. And he shouldn't have. But thankfully, we got away with this one because there was no VAR. Because Jarell Quansah puts his arm around him and takes him down. That lad was through. The ball was not making it to Kelleher. The referee couldn't see it. From behind, all it looked like was a tussle 50-50. I think had there been VAR, I think Jarell might have been walking. He gets lucky. And then we get one final chance. Jota wins the ball, gives it to Darwin Núñez. Darwin has the option of Harvey Elliott, who's out wide right. Should have played it to him, didn't, as a shot. The keeper saves it. And we managed to see out the game in the second half. But it's worth noting, before we got complacent, Southampton had had one shot in an hour. After we got complacent and they scored their goal, they had like 4 shots in 5 minutes. They were so up for it. That's how much control that we lost. 30 odd minutes into the second half, we'd had 2 touches in the opposition box in that second half. Now, remember, this is a team that has scored 22 of its last 25 goals in the second half. We got 2 in the first half today. And then we were no threat whatsoever in that second half. So complacency aside, youngsters aside, Slot's got to look at the reason there was such a drop-off in that second half. The bringing on of Chiesa, which was absolutely the right thing to do because he's been out for so long with injury, but it backfired. And I'm not blaming him. He's barely kicked a ball in a year, but he was so far off the pace. And of course, once you've subbed them on, there's nothing you can do really. But he was so far off. He was getting caught in challenges. He was putting himself at risk of getting injured because he wasn't going into tackles. And he was ended up on the floor, claiming fouls and not getting them. He's got a long way to go before he's going to be ready for first team football based on that. Give him his due. He had our best efforts of the second half. It was a cracking shot, curling efforts. God, I wish it had gone in because it would have done his confidence the world of good. Saved off the line by the boot of the defender, it beat the keeper. And then it came back to him and he hit a cracking second shot as well that was deflected over. But obviously, he's going to have to do a lot of work to be ready to step up for Premier League level. So we end the game, we win it 2-1. I'd say it was a 9 out of 10 performance in the first half. And I don't know, what number would you give the second? 2, 3, maybe a 4. All right, I'll be nice, 4. But you do have to step back. When the game ended, I was a bit mad talking about complacency. It was all to do with complacency, but it wasn't, of course. That was a factor, and it's something Slot has to figure out with this team because we do have a complacency problem, even with our first 11. When we're up against lesser teams or when we look like we're cruising a game. So that does need to still be fixed. But it was due to youngsters. It was due to players coming back. It was due to tiredness. We were in an away ground. They just had to go for it in that second half, and they did. And we saw it through. We didn't have the players on the pitch, or enough of them anyway, that have the experience of managing that. The bottom of the Premier League, but they're a Premier League team, and we had a bunch of kids out there. And Chiesa, Elliott, Costas were all coming back, even Trent, all coming back from injury, and loads of changes. So there's a lot of mitigating circumstances for that second half, let's say. So shout-outs. I want to start with a player I thought was absolutely brilliant for the first half. Didn't have as much impact in the second half, but again, he hasn't played. And that was Endo. He was just sublime in that first half. He was winning everything. He was controlling everything. And it was a wonderful display. For a player who barely gets on the pitch, except for 10 minutes here and there, he's a class act. And he was superb. Second shout out goes to Kelleher for that brilliant save at 2-1. A volley from about 6 yards out, and his reflexes are amazing, and he parries it over the bar. It was a tremendous save, and once again he just shows his class, doesn't he? And the third shout out, not to anyone in particular, but to every young lad who played today. The Niones, the McConnells, the Mortons. There was a lot of them. We won the game. We controlled the game for 45 minutes, and we beat a Premier League team away from home with these youngsters playing. So they may have shown a little bit of an experience at some time, and they may have tired, but kudos to every single one of them, because they know the Liverpool way, and they played that Liverpool way until things just got a bit hairy in that second half. And the last one, Harvey Elliott, put in a position he's not used to. He scores a cracking goal. He shifted around. He plays the whole game. Once again, he never gave up. He didn't have the perfect game by any stretch of the imagination, but it was still a really good comeback from Harvey, and he's going to be a key player. And we know he's going to play right midfield if he plays in Premier League games, not as the right winger, and he's far better as a right midfielder, as we all know. So on to the semis we go. It's Arsenal, Newcastle, and one of Spurs versus Man United. All the big guns except for Man United. And we'll have to not play the kids in that one. It's a semi, so we're going to have to be playing the big boys in that game. So right, on we go away to Tottenham, back to business in the Premier League. An absolutely critical game as we approach Christmas. 3 points is going to be absolutely massive. The lads are going to be well up for it. Tottenham are porous at the back, so we will get chances. We've just got to be on it defensively, but I'll see you after the game against Spurs. Cheers, you'll never walk alone. See you then. Ta-ra.